Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine heirs. Today is July the 21st, 1442 on the ancient moon calendar, 1441 on the ancient sun calendar, and 2021 on the Greco-Roman calendar. All rise and stand. This is a sovereign, original, indigenous, ancient, Article 3, natural, divine, living, Moorish American, Al-Moroccan Consular Court action. I am sovereign, living justice, Pauline moorishe, in capitis, diminutio, nolo, in red ink, in propria persona futuris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. My free chosen sovereign appellation is Light Tajiri Bay, in capitis, diminutio, nolo, in red ink, in proprio persona futuris, in proprio solo, and in proprio heredes. No United States corporation, company, citizen, nor their agents, principals, heirs, assigns, nor any derivatives thereof, has personam jurisdiction, nor territorial jurisdiction, nor subject matter jurisdiction over me, nor over any more. We want to announce our fast that we're going to be doing in 2 days. It starts on the 23rd, which is Holy Friday. The 23rd, the 24th, and the 25th, we're going to be fasting as a nation. We're excited about it because we already know what it means. Whenever we cleanse our temple, it makes it that much easier for us to get the downloads that we need from our ancestors. The downloads come as a matter of electricity. They are electrical in nature. So when we clean and clear our systems, we know our systems are electrical as well. There are other workings. It's electrical and mechanical and conscious and all of that. And flesh and living, breathing, sovereign, Muslim muscle, because muscle does mean, Muslim does mean muscle. That's what our teachers have said. So we want to clear and clean up and drink lots and lots and lots of water. There are different kinds of fast. If you cannot fast, if you feel you cannot fast away from food completely for the 3-day period and just do lots and lots of water, then fast from whatever it is that seems to be something that that you know you need to get rid of out of your life, but you haven't done it yet. Fast from that for 3 days, whether it be meat or sugar or negativity or negative people, negative comments, and even negativity that might be coming out of us, because sometimes we'll be giving off negative energy when people are saying certain things, and we don't realize that that negative energy is coming forth. But other people can feel it because we're all energetic beings. And so even if you're telling someone something and they haven't said anything, but they're looking at you like they don't believe you or something like that, you can feel that energy. You just know it's there. And so any energy that that might be emanating even from us, you want to cleanse and clear them and then replace them. So don't leave the space empty, because if you leave the space empty, it makes room for that energy to come back. But if you fill that space with gratitude and with information, and then with actions to back up the gratitude and the information, then it makes it so that that energy cannot come back and dwell in your temple. So we're fasting as a nation the 23rd of July, 24th of July, and the 25th of July. So we're hoping that as many as possible will fast with us so that we can see the manifestations. If you have demonstrations coming up, go ahead and plan on fasting so that you're fasting in support of your own demonstration, and that you have the synergy of all the rest of us who are fasting for you for that demonstration. So we want to, instead of just listening today, I would love for us this to be a little bit more interactive. specifically for this particular exercise, where we name one thing that our ancestors came through for us on. Just one thing where we know that no one else did it but the ancestors. So if anyone wants to *6 and unmute, and I'll start. The ancestors came through for me when I did the demonstration in February, the TOW camp demonstration in February. They came through. I knew it was them. It couldn't have been anyone but them coming through us because we know that we are the ancestors' return. And they just really, really showed themselves true to their word, that when we honor them, that they will do the very same and honor us too in the demonstrations that we're doing. So because I'm going somewhere with this, we first have to show gratitude and acknowledge what's been done in order for us to take that to the next level of demonstrating our gratitude, which means it's going to be multiplied and come back to us. So the more that we show gratitude for the things that our ancestors have done, the more they multiply that back to us, that same energy, because the universe is energetic. And like energies travel on the same frequency. And when we exude that frequency or emanate that frequency or exhibit that frequency and live and become that frequency, then we become living gratitude. We become living prosperity. We become living beings in that way that manifest all of those things. We become living manifestors, and the manifestations become quicker and quicker and quicker. It took us a little while, some years, to manifest to where we are right now, where we feel absolutely comfortable on our land in terms of things like policy enforcers and things like that. We are feeling completely comfortable knowing who we are on the land. That doesn't mean we don't get the programming doesn't get a little nervous and things like that. That doesn't mean that. But it does mean that we're not feeling like we have to look over our shoulder at all, and that we travel freely throughout the territory, and, you know, we're continuing to live the way that we should on our land. So if anyone would like to *6 and just name one thing where the ancestors came through for you. Just one thing, one demonstration that you did that the ancestors came through.
Islam. Israel, Perez Bay, North Carolina Territory. I would say just in my studies, for one thing, the revelations through study, study of the Constitution, for instance. You know, Tashriq Bey always said, study the Constitution. He said, you know, just like Nodra Alisa, enforce the Constitution. And I found that every time I start reading the Constitution, there's something new that I find, for one thing. And that when you really look at it, when you really examine it, you see that it says so much. It's a much different lesson than what we've been told. It says a whole lot different than what we've been told. And to me, that revelation is total evidence of the ancestors coming through for us. I yield.
Yeah. It's, someone else. Garcia.
Islam, Cynthia Ann Bay here, Califia Territory. And what stands out for me as one thing is I no longer get anything from the so-called bill collectors. And because my family don't receive any, I don't anymore in my name, well, excuse me, my appellation. So it's strange because you're always getting things in the lecture box, and I don't get that anymore. So I'm grateful for that. There's a lot more, that, but I'm just going to say that for right now. So anyway, thank you, Islam.
We'll go 2 or 3 more people.
Islam, can you hear me?
Islam. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. This Portia calling from Detroit, Michigan territory. I think I know that my ancestors was there when I left my last job, because I had been wanting to leave the job for some years. We had been talking about it, and and the night before I left the job, I spoke with a friend of mine and was telling her how much I wanted to quit. And I talked about leaving the job before, but this time when I spoke with her, I felt a gut connection. And so we talked for a little bit about it. and the next day, I was thinking, how am I going to leave, or how is this going to go? And the next day, it's like a way was made. Some things happened where they actually helped me along, took my IDs, and they didn't terminate me or fire me, but that made me know that I needed to go. And it was peacefully done. It wasn't, I was peacefully able to go away. I was even able to take the rest of my vacation time and everything. So I knew that they watched over me through the process.
Yeah, Islam. Islam.
I knew.
Islam. Okay. Islam. Someone else.
Islam.
Sure.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. But I just wanted to say another thing I had been speaking on that I wanted to do was get my son out of the public schools. And I had been promising him that for years and didn't know how it was going to be done. And then this pandemic showed up, and I was able to get him out of there clean and with no problems, sending notifications, and we was done. And that's how I know they was watching. Oh, that was the answer.
Yeah.
I yield for real now.
Islam. It's Cynthia again. I do want to. I think this is important to share. I went through the corporate foreclosure processes, but it was a really scary thing when it happened. But I knew that I could no longer stay with that system, and I was willing to live in a cave if I had to. But and my consort and my son and I, are living in a small place, but we have a very limited amount of fiat. And we weren't sure how we were gonna make it through this process. But I just kept believing in the ancestors, and things kept coming to us, things that we needed, because we had to rebuild. And I'm still rebuilding, and but things kept coming to us. I mean, as far as so-called funds and from unexpected places. And that's been like for the last year and a half. And so we find ourselves now with all the comforts that we need, and it came from places I never expected it to. But I felt like through the whole process, I have been taken care of. And then another thing for me is this information that we are receiving right now. I mean, to me, it's just mind-blowing. And actually not the place I'd rather be, and I'm here to see this whole thing through and to help free the planet, and I've been taken care of through this whole process. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. Islam.
Thank you, Islam. Thank you, Empress. That's beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful, because people don't think, you know, they had us thinking that those jobs were the end all be all, and that if we all, you know, stop doing that, stop running on that treadmill long enough to study and implement who we really are. But they had us thinking that if we got off that treadmill, we were finished. And as it turns out, because I left the job too in 2011, and I haven't looked back. That began my awakening. It started with meditation, and then in 2017, I heard a Tariq Day video, and that was the, you know, that was it right there. You know, me and my two brothers, Chalet Moore and Sage, heard the word, and he cast the spells and broke the spells over our mind, and it's been a wrap ever since for us. So they had us thinking, though, that, you know, because I was thinking, I mean, I saw the absolute worst back then in my mind, but the worst didn't happen, you know, because I was with somebody who always wanted the one who made the most money, you know, that kind of thing, the one who made the most fiat. You know, some are like that. You know, some of us are where the woman is the one who just really brings home the fiat. And I was with, I am with someone who preferred that. So I just saw my life like in shambles, need divorce, you know, and it's not even a marriage thing for us. Once I woke up, I realized that that's a bond too. So let's break that bond and be in matrimony instead of in marriage. But I just saw all hell breaking loose. And it didn't happen that way. It didn't happen that way. And it's been a while. And then right when energies were starting to change and I woke up, the ancestors were like, we're not even going to let you go back and work, because I was going to go back to work. I had applied at the VA, and I applied for 3 positions, and they said, just pick the one you want and you can have it. And they were going to onboard me back onto that corporate dead ship. They even used those terms. They were going to onboard me on those dead ships. And I was like, and then I woke up after I applied. I woke up in 2017. So I applied, and then 3 or 4 months later, 2 months later after I applied, I woke up. And then 2 or 3 months after that, they called. And that was just a whirlwind of a whole bunch of ancestors saying, that is not what we have planned for you. Not at all. But I was able to see what was happening while it was happening. I saw them turn red fingerprints into black. They would put people's fingerprints on like our red stamp press. And then they would slide it into an oven and turn it black. And heat it up and turn it black. To me, that is actually the non-anthropomorphic version of the Holocaust, because they were denationalizing right in front of everyone. And when I saw that, I was like, wait a minute, what is going on here? Because I knew that we did things in red, in all lowercase letters. Well, I didn't know lowercase letters, but I knew that we signed in red, and I'm looking at them cooking these fingerprints in their little oven, and I'm thinking, what's the purpose of heating up the fingerprints? So then I told them I didn't want to give them my fingerprints, and that was, you already know, that was a whole thing. I gave them all the writing. I gave them all the codes and statutes and everything back then. And it turned out that I just refused. I just wasn't going to do it. And I wasn't going to go in under a social security number, because I knew that those things are not for us. I knew. I didn't know what the rebuttal to that was. I did not know what the rebuttal was. We know today what the rebuttal is. The rebuttal is put everything in red, take out all minus signs, everything in all lowercase letters. That's the proper rebuttal, because you can't just say something's fraud and not prove what the real is. And they were there for me the whole time. I mean, they were there for me. They kept everyone calm around me while I went through those changes and everything, including going into the POW camp. The ancestors kept everyone around me calm and everything. So I'm grateful. I mean, they've shown themselves faithful so many times. Is there anyone else? You can just start.
It's on.
It's on.
Hotep Bay, Northwest Amexem Territory. I'd like to first point out that ancestors been with me all my life, and I just realized that this morning. You know, they've shown me things about myself for taking the initiative to study myself, to start taking things more seriously, and start being more active with what they put out there for us to do as far as principles of law, constitution of self, the whole nine. When it what it boils down to for me with the ancestors is that renewing in my mind is the one thing that I have to prioritize, which is something that's also in scripture as well. So as far as demonstration is concerned, just studying, the demonstration of studying thyself. You know, they're showing me things that I've always known, but, you know, now there's affirmation. Because if you guys aren't picking it up already, we are all connected, all of us, just like you were saying earlier today when you started the call, right, about, you know, you may be exerting certain frequencies, certain energies in other people's presence, and, you know, you may not intentionally be doing that towards them, but the fact that you having that prejudice or that judgment, or, you know, whatever you want to call it, resentment towards whatever the topic's being discussed or what have you, you know, people can feel that. People do feel that. And I'm just grateful that folks are waking up to that fact after all these years suffering from people being ignorant of that. Islam, are you a Grand Rising heirs?
Islam. Anyone else want to say something? Just give gratitude to the ancestors for just one or two things that they have done where they show themselves to you. Islam. Go ahead, Empress.
Islam. Empress Lael, Bat Israel, Texas Territory Republic. I wanted to share this with you all, with the nation. I spoke with Empress Janaya on yesterday, and we were talking, and I was compelled to share my journey with her. Prior to me knowing who I was or ever becoming nationalized, I had been dealing with harassment for several years. And it had gotten to the point where I was just tired of it. So I was sitting out on the patio one evening and was praying. And I asked God to bring whoever this is that is doing the harassment into the highest court, his court, highest court of the land, and also the court that hovers over the land. And that if he would only allow me to bear witness. Well, I explained to Justice Janaya that not only did he allow me to bear witness, he has now allowed me to be justice and govern over the court cause of actions. I yield.
Islam. Ooh. That's really good, Empress. That's what I love about our consular court action, is that we get to issue the judgment for those who violated us. We get to issue the judgment for that. We've been looking around waiting for justice, and all we had to do was look in the mirror. I'm glad about that it's that powerful. That is the most important concept that Grand Sheikh Taj Tariq Bey has given to me specifically and to our nation specifically. To me, that's the most important concept I've heard yet from anyone, is the consular court venue. Yes, Justice, yes, Jarrell, don't start with the goosebumps. You give me goosebumps with that one right there. He said, "Arise, O God, and judge the world." That's the word. That is the word. Empress Portia, simply be the word. Period. We were waiting for someone else to do our job. That's our job. No one else can do it. That's why everybody's been looking around like, I'll be glad when we get some justice for all this craziness that's going on the land. And we're looking around like, well, where's that coming from? Oh, I guess we got to do it. And Grand Sheikh talked about that consular venue, and I just remember when he first started talking, when I first heard him talking about the consular venue, I just wondered, why is that so important? That's back then in the day, I wondered that. You know, I was just a month old, and he was talking about that consular venue and how we must restore the consular venue on the land. And I was thinking, how do we do that? Do we have to go, I was thinking all kinds of stuff about, because I read about the one that was doing business as president at the time in 1956. And I read that whole thing, and I thought, it's going to take some kind of proclamation from them or something. That's what I was thinking, not knowing that they can't close the consular venue, nor can they open it. It never closed. The consular venue has always been present. Our ancestors have always been present on the land. So the consular venue never went anywhere. It just needed to be active in each one of our lives. So I am grateful for that. And is there anyone else is there anyone else? And I already know that there's someone on this call. I can hear it in my spirit. The ancestors are telling you to say something, and you have not star six and said anything. And then when the call is over, you're going to call me on the phone and say, I was going to say something, but I just couldn't say it. Or my mic didn't work, or I tried to star six. And
Islam.
Islam.
For me, it's a painful situation as recalling from memory. Remember the time with my mom, always trying to protect me from the outside forces. Mm-hmm. Going to school and always questioning things that seems to be incorrect. And the more I question it, the more I was focused on to be picked on from the teachers or the staff. They told my mother that he needs to see a doctor and try to give me medication. The medication didn't work because she didn't like how I was under. But when you grow up and have kids of your own, try to have kids of your own, the basic problem of pain is remembering what they try to do to you at school with me, And then, you know, what happened to my daughter is just the same thing. It wouldn't break the cycle. No matter what I did or how I did it, it was kept, you know, my daughter was being bullied. My daughter was called a cheater and everything else. And I did my best to teach her. I did my best to show her a better way. And I always have been put down to such a degree that I had no right to question them. But when I'm getting blamed for something as negligent, which was never proved or have evidence in courts, going to family courts, it was always denied. And when I should try to submit it or try to question it, it was never a question in front of the court. Until one time I heard by accident, they said, to my daughter, would you rather have a sister or a father? That's an ultimate choice. What pains me after that, my daughter didn't realize how much pain I was in. I just lost one child out of miscarriage, and I lost another child by relocation. So I just lost two before she was born. I was trying to make up for it. And when you're dealing with the military, I was over-chemicalized. I was over-consequented, but underserved. I was court-martialed. I was in solitary for a month and a half. Dropped the case without a lawyer. Went back to it. Went to the hospital for a whole year. Over-medicated. By the time I came out, I didn't know who I was. The only time that ever woke me up seeing my daughter.
Yeah.
She acts so much like me. That woke me up.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
After that, I did it myself as a detoxing. And the only crude way I know how was didn't eat for a month and just drank mineral water for a whole month. I had all the toxin taken out of me because I could smell it.
Yes.
And my nerves were shot after that. And I couldn't get a grip on my nerves.
Yeah.
I had the horrendous nightmares. And I remember one nightmare that was particular, where I was being chased and trying to run, and I kept going in a cycle. And I stopped in that nightmare, and I said to myself, why am I running from and what am I chasing? How did I get here? In that nightmare, I stopped and I said, well, if I could sleep, get into my nightmares, I could sleep into reality. So that's what I did and woke up from the nightmare.
Mm.
And that was the revelations that I overcome, I guess, my own demons in sort of way, but for lack of nutrients. But when I was trying so hard to help my daughter that she was getting all the wrong message and didn't see the reflection, and I kept telling her, I am your past. You are my future.
That's very beautiful.
And it's just like being abused all over again. And they stick me with a diagnosis that's not even PTSD. I'm having this other secondary obsessive compulsive disorder where I keep doing things over and over because I'm scared to relive it. And keep people at distance. Because to them, I'm just a regular person. Man. But the pain is so deep to the point that I couldn't believe that if I tell anyone, I almost had near-death experience 4 times. And I say to myself, I can't have a 5th time. But it didn't make sense when you go to the VA hospital. They will give you something wrong and give you a lot of money and just says, take as much medication you want. We're not going to give you therapy. We're not going to get any further assistance. Not only did they rescind most of my benefit, that's 100%, but they also rescinded my daughter. And for then, I knew I was back against war. My mother see the total difference, like it was 9 days. When I came with my mother to this place that she has a house, she took care of me. She could say that I was like a zombie. And I was overweight, had total dyskinesia, swelling on the face. Couldn't even, just going through life with just a heart and no mind. But when I detoxed myself and got my nerves into herbalism, learning my history, learning my true path, denying me my connection to this earth. And I started to redraw history, chronicle instead of displacement.
Yes.
Restructuring the constitutions where the fact is you don't see it. When it was talking about critical race theories and they're talking about white privilege, and I said, how come no one looked at the National Act by 1790? It would tell you right there and then, the first one, which is 5 or 6 revising, is white privilege against all the other race. It says it right there in the first one. It's the National Act of 1790. It says it right there. And every politician, everyone is acting like they're in denial. I say, so you mean to say these people that went to school and got college, these professors, they are black, that did this study, and you don't understand the roots of their studies? I did. How is it then I started to understand it's a denial thing? I've seen it way too many times before. They will keep denying you, even though you may be right. Because there's no money for them to be wrong, or to admit wrong, or to say sorry. They will put you through trials, go through appeals. You got people in Guantanamo Bay that have been there for 20 years and not a single charge. I felt that they gave me a diagnosis for 20 years to re-stigmatize my pain.
And to push fiat so they can keep selling, passing drugs and services and all of that. You don't sound like you don't sound like what you've been through. You sound very, very clear on everything.
I know. It took a while to practice, to face people before. They said I used to be quick-witted when I was young. I got it back. Mm-hmm. The only thing that helped me, basically, is remembering everything before it happened to trauma, which was that little kid. Because if I could remember that little kid's purpose, it was always there. But it's everyone else that says different. And that's why I started to understand. It was always rooted where I always try to help my mom. I'm always trying to be, helping the family as much as I could. I understand the suffering. I want to go into the commonality where, other kids will go with other kids or be in peer pressure to. I will go the opposite.
Mm-hmm. Brother Q,
so that's why when other kids was doing the peer pressure stuff, doing all the other stuff, I would do the opposite because I knew I'd rather work for it. I'd rather earn for it. And
so you had nobility even then. Your nobility was coming forth even then.
Right. And it was hard to see it because there was no common structure like me. Because I had dealing with teachers that stick to the script. They didn't want me to be challenged enough. So I gave up. I gave up on school to the point that it didn't make sense. I noticed that certain schools would teach physics and chemistries. That would be in suburban areas, not in New York City. I realized that, certain fundings will get certain students, and I started to understand the teacher has a bad habit reporting mandated reports to benefit to subdue the child way past the point of disrespecting the child to the traumatizations where if the kid is small enough to question, he's not challenging the person. He's challenging the course. But it made it seem so personal that you have to challenge, you have to take away that kid's education and indoctrinate him with punishment. It seems...
So how did the ancestors come through for you, having gone through all that you've been through? Because you've been through a lot.
More than anyone else should have. And I'm trying to be very careful. Because sometimes, like they said, if you tell your wish, maybe the wish won't come true. Or if the purpose is more into the open, then it won't happen that way. That's why I'm always discreet on certain things because I don't want to ask. I'm not the person to ask because I ask way too much and I've done too much to get it pushed back harder. And sometimes, I separate myself from every other situation because of it.
I will say that that it's an honor that you have chosen not to separate yourself from your nation and to participate in the governing, first of our own affairs, and then assisting our brothers and sisters. The fact that you're here and that you feel comfortable enough to speak out and tell what you've been through, because you did mention earlier that, you know, at one point you would not have spoken about it. So it's an honor that you are here and that you've come with an open mind and an open heart in terms of the sharing. Because that's what these calls are all about, is we need to hear from one another. We need to connect with one another. And you're here. I think it's amazing because you do not sound like what you've been through. Not at all.
Yeah.
You know,
I guess I'm more mature when I was a kid, and you know, it's just like saying the scars may be invisible, but the memories are the worst scars of pain.
So what brought you to these calls? How did you come across the information? There had to be something in you that connected with the information of Moorish science.
People, I guess, they invited me. Several people invited me to several other organizations, and I had to be wise enough to understand the facade of what they were saying. And most of the times when you deal in other organizations that replicate the same interests and connections, they put forth a lot of sayings, but when I'm the only person that I double check the answers. I verify them. That's what I do. People ask me to do something, I find a way to verify the information, find other sources to compare it to, and basically engineer by truth. I mean, when I'm frustrated, I build things, I fix things, and I feel like, you know, that heals me a little bit. You know, it takes me, you know. But it's just, you know, for me, I mean, I've helped several people, and it doesn't give me gratification. It gives me less people around me that doesn't have to deal with something they shouldn't have been like I have. It's just like saying there couldn't be one more person to suffer. I'm trying to help them. I don't want one more person to suffer unnecessarily.
Well, clearly you saved yourself and got your footing. Clearly you saved yourself, so you're able to assist others who were having the same battles in their mind about themselves and about others around them. That is what this is. And when you talk about, I like everything that you said, but I love what you said about when you're hurt, you build. Because believe it or not, this 400 plus year sleep that we engaged in as a nation, where we consented to go to sleep, and we went through trauma, I mean, all of us have been through some sort of trauma, whether it be going to jail or, you know, something like that, or having some Moors have had, you know, heirs taken by that quote unquote system. Others have, you know, had things happen where they were pulled over and etc. Well, throughout this time that we've been asleep, there's a larger purpose for the trauma, okay? And we actually consented. I know it's hard to believe that we consented to go to sleep and be traumatized and then wake back up. But as we know, in scientifically, Islam, as we know scientifically, trauma changes our cellular makeup. And when the change happens, if we readjust properly, and properly just means the way that you did. You're here, you're speaking out about it, you're healthy to where you can speak on it, and speak on it without a bunch of anger coming through and a bunch of other energies coming through. Grand Rising, welcome nobility. Trauma changes our cellular makeup, and this is the thing about this trauma that we consented to go through. We knew the reason we consented to go through it is because we knew that when we woke up, we would have, as a people and as a nation, the most advanced cellular makeup on the earth. Because our trauma will have been changed so much that, and that's why these things happen, where when we wake up, we're able to learn and take in so much information so quickly, and we're able to hear from the universe, and we're able to experience the things that we've experienced. There's a knowing that happens in our energy and in our spirit and in our consciousness. And we now, right now, today, because of what we've been through, we have the most advanced DNA on the earth. The most advanced DNA, and we don't have DNA, we actually have ONA, oxyribonucleic acid. And that makes us the most advanced people. So, and everyone is already aware that we were able to take that because of the bloodline that we have. We have a bloodline that has been advanced because we chose to go to sleep and then wake up. To go to sleep and go through the trauma that we went through and then wake up and say, okay, we went through all of those things, we did. However, now we know who we are, and we're able to change everything that happened so that our heirs don't have to go through it. So my point of this exercise of naming one thing that where the ancestors came through for us is this. This is the reason why I wanted us to do this exercise. And I know those who didn't say anything, I know that you have thought of different places and times and events where the ancestors came through for you. Because this is the point. Yes, in the chat. Empress Tifa says the ancestors have led her to this point. Lots of trauma in this, but it only made her who she is today. Islam, much stronger. All of us are much stronger. Much stronger. But the point of this exercise is so that we can make this particular point. The point is this. Whenever any of us can look back and point to the places where the ancestors were moving and rearranging things and clearing things up for us and cleaning things up and making things clearer to us, if we can look back and see even one point, one place where we know that was the ancestors, when we can say that, then we lose the right to ever think that they won't do that again. We lose the right to blame anyone else for anything that happens with us, because the fact that the ancestors were there and we know they were there the whole time means that they have not gone anywhere. So we lose the right to complain and to think that they won't do it again because they keep doing it. They keep being there for us. We just have to create the situation where we see them. They're going to be there, period. If they weren't, most of us would be in a corner babbling somewhere and people calling us crazy. But the fact that we actually are the scientists that we are today says that the ancestors have their hands in everything that we do. We are the ancestors' return. And then when we think about all that our ancestors went through, we don't have the right to ever think that they're not with us. We don't have the right to do that. Now we have every right on earth to do all kinds of things. But the one thing we don't have the right to do, and I will say this from me, is to think that the ancestors will not, that something will happen and they won't be there for us when we honor them. Because they will, they have, and they will continue to be. So as we move to this next level that we're going to as a nation and as a people, yes, Empress Denise, she says, yes, I see now they have always been with me. Yes. I can remember when I was a little girl. I was about 5 years old, and they were having a carnival in the street in Detroit, Michigan territory. They used to block off the street and put little toys and carnival, little rides and spinning cups and things in the street and just have like a block party. And I remember when I was 5 years old, I was spinning on this little cup. I was the only one in it. And a drunk man broke through the barrier with his conveyance, with his car, and he came ramming down. He was doing about 70 or 80 down this short little street. And one of the empresses, Valerie Hawkins is her appellation, and she knows who she is. I honor her so much. She's still in Michigan territory, and I just love the Hawkins family. And the Donaldsons, love them so much. Valerie, ran out into the street, and she grabbed me out of that cup about, maybe 2 seconds before he hit it. And she took me right on off, out of the way. And no one was hurt. And it was people everywhere. And soon as someone saw this guy's car coming down the street, and stuff was just flying. It was just flying everywhere. And the crazy part about it is we could go into all of that, but I know the ancestors were there. Because I even saw I remember what kind it was. It was a Chevy. I remember it like it was yesterday. I saw it coming down the street, and I saw it moving, doing crazy movements as it was hitting things, but I didn't think it was coming my way. And it tore that little cup up, little spinning cup. So the answer, I don't have the right to say that the ancestors are not there, because they've always been with us, all of us. Yes, we've been traumatized by things. We have, all of us. The greater design, and some of us, some of us are deprogramming ourselves from the trauma. Because just like you were saying, the noble was saying, the medications and stuff didn't help. He had to get himself his own footing. So what did he do? And Nobility that was telling the story, when you talked about the 30 days of mineral water, Listen, that's what the fasting that we're doing is all about. That is how you cleanse your body from the toxins. Because all of us, if we've eaten any of the food that's out there, we got toxins in our body. And just like I was telling you all, when I went into the POW camp to do the demonstration in February, and I fasted for 10 days, I could feel the toxins leaving my body. And I drank so much water, and sometimes I would get up, and I was actually tired of getting up in the middle of the night, because sometimes I would get up every 15 minutes and have to drink water to keep from feeling weak. But I knew if I let myself feel weak, they would win. And I wasn't going to let that happen. Because then, you know, I might get dizzy or something like that, and that was not the plan that the ancestors had. So I had to keep drinking water. And it was the reason we feel lightheaded and even hunger pains are not even hunger pains. They're actually dehydration. So, yeah, they told us the wrong thing about those two. That's when your stomach is growling, it's not because you're hungry. It's because you need to drink a lot more water. Period. So I didn't know we were going to go this long with that particular demonstration, but we none of us have the right any longer to ever think that the ancestors will not be there for us and that we have to look around and blame others or be outside, you know, look outside of ourselves for remedy, for relief, for answers, and all of that. Yes, we need one another. We need one another. We need to assist one another. We need to exchange energy with one another. But ultimately, all of our answers for each one of us is going to come from within. And the ancestors, they're never going to let us down. When we acknowledge that we know you've been there the whole time because we are the ancestors returned, and we know that you will never leave us, ever leave us. So sometimes when I'm talking to Moors, you know, every blue moon, not often, because there's some, you know, most Moors really know their power. But every now and then there'll be, you know, a Moor who does not know their full power and they go into victim mode. And when I see them going into victim mode, sometimes I just want to plug my ears, but I can't really because we have to assist one another. But I'm just thinking, you just don't know how powerful you are. We are not victims. We are the victor. Since when was God ever a victim? And yes, Justice Amos, there's no need for a middleman anymore. That's good. Because some information that I wanted to share today as we move into our next topic. Thank you for sharing, those who shared as well, because it's important that we know that if the ancestors came through once, they always will come through again. There's not a single time that they will leave us hanging, not once. So I wanted to show some information that validates further. Now we don't need validation about any of the things that we've been saying from a corporate perspective. We don't need corporate validation. But we're going to look at some of the things that align with what we've been saying about capitalism, capital letters, and all of that. I want to show you some things that some knew and others may not have known. We've heard these terms, but we need to see again repeatedly the many different ways that this stuff has been presented, and we didn't realize exactly what was going on. Okay, so I want to show you here. Let's see. I want to show you a couple of some information with regard to what actually happens when there is a name in black ink and capital letters, and what the difference is between that being created by the fiction and that which we create. We know that any name in black ink and capital letters is a corpse or a corporation. Okay, even according to the writing style manual, any word in all capital letters is either a U.S. vessel, which brings in admiralty law, admiralty and maritime law, the law of the sea. It brings that in. It's either a U.S. vessel, a corporation, which is a corpse, or a dead person. That's according to the older writing style manuals. And you can look up writing style manuals, the Chicago writing style manual, the U.S. writing style manual from the early 1800s will tell you that any word in all capital letters is a dead person, a corporation, or a U.S. vessel. And all of those are synonymous, by the way. So I wanted to put a little bit more, shed a little more light on that principle so that we can see what's really been going on. So I'm going to bring up here what they have really been doing. Okay, let me see if I can make this bigger. The word that we have here, or the term that we have here, is shell corporation. So whenever we, in our sleep, we would go into those state courts, and what would they do? No matter, and even after we woke up, sometimes we would go into those state courts in the past, and we would state our sovereign appellation, and what would they do? Put it on the paper in capital letters. And we're like, how are they continuing to do that? Some more thought that it was good when they acknowledged their appellation, but they put it in black. Some more would think, see, they acknowledged my sovereign appellation, and I'm like, that's not your appellation. That is a shell corporation. So let's talk a little bit about shell corporations right here. When they put it in black ink and capital letters, it is a shell corporation. Let's see what a shell corporation is. A shell corporation is a company or corporation that exists only on paper. Let's just stop right there. Because haven't we been saying that the United States Corporation Company only exists on paper? That they don't even have land, they don't have anything, no court, no nothing. They've just been pretending to have that by semantic deceit. But look, it says a shell corporation is a company or corporation that exists only on paper and has no office and no employees, but may have a bank account or may hold passive investments or be the registered owner of assets such as intellectual property or ships. And they put ships here for a specific reason, because that they're telling you there what law applies to these shell corporations. The law of the sea. And then they further validate what we've been saying about this black ink and capital letters. Shell companies may be registered. We know registration and register is a word that has to do with the Crown Corporation, previously doing business as the Queen of England and the City of London, etc. Registered to the address. The word address indicates that there is a trust involved. Okay? It indicates that there's a trust involved. So any registration means that there is some type of trust law being put forth. If you have to register for anything, that means someone is somewhere taking that, and they can monetize it. When you register for a class at a college, or you register for a raffle, or you register to be a member of whatever you're registering, of some corporation somewhere, then you're agreeing to be a shell corporation. If it's not allodial and sovereign, then you're agreeing to be a shell corporation. And that only exists on paper. It's not the living. Now, those that were doing business as a United States corporation company, and this is why our autographs were so valuable and so important, and our consent was so valuable and so important. Our consent was so valuable and so important because every time we put our autograph on the paper without full disclosure, okay, without full disclosure of what it is we're really, quote unquote, registering for or signing, such as birth certificates, okay, or driver's license, social security numbers, schools, churches, clubs, temples, mosques, all of that was under the service corporation. Now, if it's a temple or a mosque or something that's not under the service corporation and it's allodial and sovereign, like the old Canaanite temple, like what our prophet did, then that's different. We're not talking about that. We're talking about contracts today, registration. So even when we thought that we were going to quote unquote college, and we registered for our classes, and we were like, yeah, I'm registered for school, and et cetera, et cetera. Well, what really happened is they took all those autographs of the sleeping heirs specifically, bundled them up, put them on the stock market, and then began moving them and trafficking them. Yes, Justice Yezreel, yes, he says in the chat, they proceed from presumptions, not facts, because fictions have no facts. Truth. Fiction and fact, those are opposites. So it can't be a fact if it's a shell corporation. So then how is it that more keep being pulled into those fake venues by the use of a shell corporation? Because that's what that name in black ink and capital letters is. It's a shell corporation, and it's a dead one at that. And look here, it says the company may serve as a vehicle for business transactions without itself having any significant assets or operations. It doesn't have any assets. It's a debtor. Debtors can't own any assets. So they're telling you right here that a shell corporation, which is a name in black ink and capital letters because that's how they're created, does not have any assets or operations. A shell corporation cannot, so let's just say, for example, the state of Washington cannot bring charges against anyone who's breathing. It doesn't have any operations. The state of Washington, the state of New York, the state of North Carolina, those are shell corporations if it's in black ink and capital letters, and they cannot bring charges against anyone. Because right here, without having any significant assets or operations. Significant, not having any, period. It says sometimes shell companies are used for tax evasion, tax avoidance, and money laundering. Those are all crimes, aren't they? Or to achieve a specific goal such as anonymity. Anonymity may be sought to shield personal assets from others, such as a spouse when a marriage is breaking down, from creditors, from government authorities besides others. Well, if you don't have any assets, because it's saying right here it doesn't have any assets, then how in the world can any of the heirs be any name in black ink and capital letters and be claiming assets? I'm just asking so that we can think about this. What kind of assets can you claim when the definition of a shell corporation right there says that it doesn't have any assets? And that's why they keep pinning debt on it. Yes, Justice Yesreel, it's all fiction ab initio. Justice Amos, they were cheating the estate. Yes, they were. Now, we're going to look further into this right now because we want to see really what they were doing. Because, see, you know, some want to fight that red ink and all lowercase letters, which is not a shell corporation, because it is a creature of the law. We created it. We created it. So when we created it, then you're talking about assets. Anything that starts with us stays with us, and it is not fraud because it started with the original. But anything that starts with the fraud, shell corporations in black ink and capital letters, then it stays in fraud. It's fraud ab initio. From the beginning, it's fraud. It doesn't have any assets. So those who were trying to open bank accounts and they put that bank account in black ink and capital letters, it doesn't have any assets. So what is it going to be doing? Looking for debt, looking to move debt back and forth. Just saying. And that is why we said we must terminate all corporate contracts, because every last one of those contracts that were put forth by that black, all-cap United States corporation company was indeed debt and fraud. And you can see right here, when they're saying that these things are used for tax evasion, tax avoidance, etc., that means that somebody is using it in order to try and get away with something. So then so if you use it, they're calling you a criminal from the beginning. They're saying you're just doing that because you're trying to hide something. It's a fake space. So here it says shell companies can have legitimate business purposes. Huh, really? They may, for example, act. Well, if you're acting and you're not the real trustee, you're just acting as a trustee, then I don't see how that is lawful. Let's put it that way. It's not lawful for someone to act like a trustee when you're not the trustee. We're the trustees. We're the heirs. We're the beneficiaries. We're the executors, the ministers, the claimants. We're all of that. We're the beneficiaries. We're the creditors. We don't have to act like we are because we are in reality. Let's be real. Because people always talk about, reality, face reality. We Moors are the face of reality. Everything else is false and fiction. Period. So now I wanted to point that out because we want to get into here. I want to show you right over here on the side. Because, see, they knew. Now, this is on the same page here. Look here. This is how you know that they have always known that corpses have a jurisdiction. That means that there's some law in play here. Well, what is the jurisdiction of a shell corporation? Let's just see. These have capital letters. All this has capital letters. All of that has capital letters. And then when you look at it, they put it in black again here, United States corporate law. They put it in black. But what I wanted you to see, even more so, corporate forms of jurisdiction. Societas, S-E, Societas cooperativa, Societas privata, Societas unius personae. And those are some Latin terms all of a sudden. Now, let's just go ahead and put this out there. When you start talking jurisdiction, everybody's language changes to Latin. I wonder why, or Moorish Latin at that. I wonder why. But we can't change our language to ancient English when we start speaking the law. Oh, yes, we can. And we've already done it. See, when things start getting real about the definition, then all of a sudden it's no longer faulty, fraudulent, corporate English. I just thought I'd point that out. Another something that I wanted you to see. Right here, doctrine, business judgment rule, corporate governance, de facto and estoppel corporations. De facto corporation and corporation by estoppel. Let's look at that. Are both terms that are used by courts in most common law jurisdictions to describe circumstances in which a business organization that has failed to become a de jure corporation will nonetheless be treated as a corporation, thereby shielding, and I can't see the rest of it there, but we can click on it because there's some other things I want you to see here. Let's click on that and go to it. There it is right there. De facto corporation and corporation by estoppel are both terms that are used by courts in most common law jurisdictions. Now, this is not the sovereign jurisdiction. This is a common law jurisdiction to describe circumstances in which a business organization that has failed to become a de jure corporation, a corporation by law, will nonetheless be treated as a corporation, thereby shielding shareholders from liability. You have to know who's who in these definitions. You have to know who's who. We already know what de facto is all about and the difference between de facto and de jure. They're stating it right here. De jure, a corporation by law. So whenever you talk about de jure just means the law. Or the word. That's what de jure means. It means the real one. I wanted to show you also, and these are some things that you can just do a little more digging in, but I just wanted to point it out and make it known about these shell corporations and what they've been doing to the heirs, and having the heirs be the surety for these shell corporations for tax evasion, tax avoidance, and money laundering. The heirs have been being surety for that by claiming to be a shell corporation. So it's not, yes, the de facto play a part in it, but we have to stop being shell corporations, pretending to be shell corporations. And
Islam.
another part, yes, Islam, nobility.
Note that it mentioned for shielding of the shareholders. That's important too, because when you follow the fiat, where does it go? It goes right back across the water to the corporate crown and the Vatican Corporation, doesn't it?
Yes.
I yield.
Yes. Islam. That's good. That's good. Thank you for pointing that out. That's really good. And look here, right here on the side over here. I want to make this a little bit bigger so we can see it too. Because see, we need to know what's been happening on our land. The doctrines of a shell corporation include some things that are so sticky when you talk about contracts of adhesion. Contracts of adhesion, driver's license, social security card, mortgages, etc. When you talk about de facto operations on our land, then you start talking about things like the tag-along right. Well, what is the tag-along right? Let's just see what that is, because we've been talking about how they use those corporate black names in all capital letters to get us to consent to giving them a sovereign status or some delegation that we didn't give them. Tag-along rights comprise a group of clauses in a contract which together have the effect, that means it's not clear, it has the effect of allowing the minority shareholders in a corporation to also take part in a sale of shares by the majority shareholder to a third party under the same terms and conditions. So does that not sound shady? Like somebody's not going to know what's going on in this situation. Then you got minorities and majorities. And what have they been calling us the whole time? Minorities. They've been doing corporate speak on us the whole time and then attaching themselves to us in order to get a benefit, to get a sandwich. We talk about that all the time. They're talking about tag along. Now let's look at drag along. That means somebody, but look, they're not even going to tell you what drag along really means. They're not going to tell you what drag along right means. It says it's a legal concept in corporate law. I bet you can guess what drag along right means, though, just by the language that they use. We already know that not giving full disclosure to a contract, and then we go into those fake courts and we start talking, and what do? Grab us by the ankles and attach themselves to us and then start pretending to be sovereign over us and subrogate our identity, right? Follow the fiat, yes, in the chat. Through adhesions. Adhesions is glue to keep people stuck. And now they're talking about dragging along, some stuff we just did not know. I've never heard of a drag along right. What in the world where is that a right? It's only when the heirs say, when we consent to be surety. Now, the one thing that in fact, let me go ahead and click on this. They're probably not going to give you a whole lot on it, but let's click on drag along right anyway. And let's just look at the funny wording, because I already know it's going to be worded funny. Not the laughing kind of funny. Drag along right is a legal concept in corporate law. Under the concept, if the majority shareholder of an entity sells their stake, the prospective owner has the right to force the remaining minority shareholders to join the deal. In other words, the minorities don't really have a say. That's why we don't let anybody call us blacks and minorities. But that's where all of that black stuff comes from. Just like when we would sign those corporate bank accounts and all of those things, and then they would go taking things that wasn't theirs and all of that. Well, that means they're forcing their corpse to go along with whatever they say. Well, if they have the right to force a corpse to go along with what they say, then how is that sovereign status? How is that sovereign status? No, we have to come out of that and be who we really are. And if you'll see here, this right protects majority shareholders, not the minority shareholders, but the majority shareholders. It protects them. And you see a lot of this going on nowadays, allowing them to sell to an owner desiring total control of an entity without being encumbered by holdout investors. So the use of these shell corporations is for total control of minorities and those who claim to be minorities. And we know we're not minorities. Never have been and never will be.
Islam.
Yes, this is Islam, nobility.
When I looked into the history, and I understand if everyone else understood as well as you do, the terminology of whipping boy. There is such a terminology as referring to one person as a whipping boy. And the terminology of a whipping boy is there is a prince who has an assistant. Any mistake that the prince does, the punishment will go on the assistant.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So that's what it is. When we are punished, we are being punished by their mistakes. Another term for that, whipping boy.
Wow. So I looked whipping boy up in the dictionary. Let me tell you what it says here, because that's good. It says whipping boy. Originally, a boy who was brought up and educated together with the young prince and was required to take the punishment for the misdeeds of the latter. And the second part of that definition is a scapegoat. So now you wonder why we've been through all we've been through? We've been being the scapegoat and the whipping boy. So that's why when corporations fail, they pass that on to the quote-unquote customers, don't they? They raise prices when they fail. They can go bankrupt. The CEO can have a big old yacht and all of that. And the minority, quote-unquote, shareholders are the ones, and the customers are the ones who pay for that. That's why we can't be in that system. Not the black one. Nope. That's another doctrine that they use in corporate. Because we already know when you're talking about princes and all of that, that's corporate too, unless you're talking about the Moors. And we've been thinking we were citizens this whole time. So now I want to point this part out too. It says in most jurisdictions, drag along and tag along rights are not statutory rights and will need to be included in shareholders' agreement or articles of association of a company. Okay. The reason they mention jurisdiction is because all of this, shell corporations are in a specific jurisdiction that is not the sovereign jurisdiction of the Moors. That's why whenever we would go into those fake courts, which we do not do, because every time we go in there, they create a shell corporation really quickly, create a shell corporation, give it a number, a quote-unquote case number, that becomes a bond, a surety bond, by the United States Treasury and the Federal Reserve Corporation. And then when they create those surety bonds, what happens then? They start selling them, and then because we did not say we're not any name in capital letters and black ink, then they will say, okay, we got some surety to collect. So let's go out there, policy enforcers, because we got the paper and we have their agreement to be surety. See, that's why I've been saying it's not even about guns. It's about the paper. Shell corporations only exist on paper. And when if we were agreeing to sign their paper, then we're agreeing to exist on their paper. That's why we terminate corporate contracts, and that's why we do what we do in terms of, yes, and the shell is used as a paper jurisdiction. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Ain't no sense in them blocking my screen out now. We gonna get it. Oh boy, try to go away with the screen. No, we gonna talk about it. All right, so let's go here now. I'm gonna go back to Shell Corporation because I want to show you something else that's really important for us to know. Oh, let me go back to this one because we got to see this part. I'm going to have to bring it back up again. All right, there we go. Now, when you're talking about shell corporations, there's a doctrine here that we must see. It's called piercing the corporate veil. Piercing the corporate veil or lifting the corporate veil is a legal decision to treat the rights and duties of a corporation as the rights or liabilities of its shareholders. See, Justice Israel, what you said earlier about protection for the shareholders, that protection is no longer there when the corporate veil is lifted or pierced. So let's look at that right there and see how is that done? Because see, that's important. How do you lift the corporate veil? Just one moment. Let me go back here. Because it's going to be important to know what that looks like. Okay. All right. Let's see. I want to point something about that out. Just one moment. Okay, let's just look real quick at this scripture right here. This is 2 Corinthians 4, 3, and 4. And the reason we're referring to the Biblioheliothek at this time is because we know that it was hypothecated. It says, but even if our gospel is veiled, because see, piercing the corporate veil, we're going to pull that out of this scripture, out of its anthropomorphic setting and put it where it really belongs. It's trust law that they're talking about. It says, but even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing. That means that, see, when they talk about a corporate veil, they're talking about the black letters, the black ink and capital letters veil, because it's putting a mask over the true heirs. It says, but even if our gospel is veiled, it is veiled to those who are perishing, whose minds the God of this age has blinded. Now, look, they put God in all lowercase letters. That means that's us. And no one can blind us but us. Who do not believe, lest the light of the gospel of the glory of Christ, who is the Christ? It's the Moors, who is the image of God, should shine on them. Okay? They're talking there about the corporate veil, the thing that was hidden from us. We didn't know we were not any name in black ink and capital letters. So let's bring up one other one, because this one is talking about the same thing. Here it says, let's look at this one right here. We'll look at let's just pick the King James. And behold, the veil of the temple was rent in twain from the top to the bottom, and the earth did quake, and the rocks rent or split. Okay. What is that saying? That's saying that whenever, see, this is how they knew that in the last days there were going to be earthquakes everywhere, and all of this stuff was going to be going on. If you look in Revelations, it talks about earthquakes and in diverse places and all of this. They knew that when we, the heirs, tore that veil up, that corporate veil, and stopped letting them use us as surety for black ink and capital letters, that the biggest change that needed to happen was going to happen, which is our freedom. Period. We just needed to rip that veil. We needed to separate, because the veil being rent in two means there's some separation going on there. That means we're over here and that corpse stuff is over there, or we're up here and the corpse stuff is back where it should be. So just know also that whenever you look at the King James Version of the biblioteliotext, that there were purposeful mistranslations to hide our truth. And if we can see our truth even there, then when we see the real translations, because the real translations are coming out now, of what it should have said about the brown, copper-colored, burnished brass heirs, then it's going to be very clear to everyone who God really is. Is it not written in your law that ye are God? In your law. Who is the law? And, you know, again, the reason that we bring these things up is so that we know what's been going on our land with us. Now, these shell corporations, and they're piercing the veil, and these principles here, look into these. Go and look into these principles, because this is going to, this right here is real important too. This internal affairs doctrine that was listed on the side of shell corporations over there. The internal affairs doctrine is a choice of law rule in corporations law. Simply stated, it provides that the internal affairs of a corporation, e.g. conflicts between shareholders and management figures such as board of directors and corporate officers, will be governed by the corporate statutes. Those are fake courts. That's fake courts. It's saying that if we agree to go to their fake court, that we agree to be governed by their fake codes and statutes. That's the internal affairs doctrine. That's why we don't go. Because, see, even when, go ahead, Nobility. I believe somebody was going to say something. Okay. Even when we think that we're going in there and, you know, we're trying to do the, you know, state who we are and all of that, just by showing up in a fake court, we're agreeing to be held to their corporate codes and statutes. That's why the consular venue is so important. We are not going there. We're going to do the court action ourselves. We're going to issue the ruling. We're going to do the discovery. We're going to do whatever needs to be done in order to get the cases into a lawful Article 3 court, which is us. It's in our blood. That's why the red ink and all lowercase letters, because those are creations of ours in red ink and all lowercase letters. And every last one of us, including those who are saying, we don't accept documents that are in red ink and capital, they sign their documents in red ink. I asked them. And most of the Moors know that we sign our documents in red ink. Why? Think about that, because it's our creation. So we know that corpses and corporate stuff is a jurisdiction. It's showing you right here on the screen. And, you know, we didn't even need a Black's Law Dictionary to show us that. These guys are admitting that they're a jurisdiction. But you can look in Black's Law and find it. Yes, Justice Yazarel, there it is again. Ink color is part of the mark of the name or the appellation. Ink color is part and parcel of our sovereign appellation. That's why. But that's not anything anyone can't look up. So we don't feel the need to convince anyone, but we are going to show the law. That's all we're going to do is point to the law and say, look here, look at this, and then go do your own study. It's jurisdiction all day, every day. And now they're saying it because, see, they a lot of this stuff, they've updated their Wikipedia and all of that. So they updated that stuff because the truth is out there. So we don't have any, you know, it's not being hidden. Yes, unum sanctum policy operations and doctrine of discovery. Yes, it sure is, Justice Frank. It sure is. So those are some things I wanted to show you. I wanted to also show you one other thing really quickly about, this is what lets us know that shell corporations have everything to do with debt. Right here, where did it say European Union? Okay, so here at shell corporations, if you look right over here under their corporate forms of jurisdiction, and if you hover over European Union, it'll say European corporate law is a part of European Union law, which concerns the formation, operation, and insolvency of corporations in the European Union. So they're telling you right there by using the word insolvency that you're talking about debt. not credit, debt. And if they were not going to tell you to use a different color ink, that's the color of your blood, and to change the lettering from capitalism lettering and in capitis diminutio maxima all the way down past in capitis diminutio minima all the way to in capitis diminutio nolo. They can't talk about in capitis diminutio nolo because it's not them. But we can. Our prophet said, if I can just get you to think, you'll free yourself. The veil has been lifted. Islam, Justice Jezreel, yes, it has. And we're going to keep lifting the veils. Keep them lifted, period. It is what it is. So when you're talking commerce, you have to know these things because this is commerce. And people are talking about commerce, but do they know commerce really? Because if you try and venture into commerce and you don't know this stuff, you get yourself caught up. And then we'll be calling them lawless. They're lawless. They're lawless. Well, hold on a minute. Did you know going in that you weren't supposed to be in black ink and capital letters? Did you know that? Before you ventured into commerce? That's another, now the insolvency piece right there, that's another reason why we had to, when we created the new jurisdiction, and it's not a new one, it's ancient, it's not new, and it's not, I mean, we created it from time immemorial. But when we did what we did in terms of proclaiming on the public record that we are not insolvent, because that's a word that we use, we are solvent. We used that word in a video 2 years ago almost, when we talked about our standing and our status and how we were going to have all commerce be gold-backed commerce. Well, we had to print moorishe sovereign delarium and use it. We had to, because the European Union right there, that they're telling you right there that it's based on insolvency. Insolvency is debt, period. They've been doing commerce using debt the whole time. Okay? Now, I can tell you really quickly that we've been doing our liens, and we've been liening the corporations using different sources of information, such as, Dun & Bradstreet and some of the other corporate information out there in order to find out who's who and what's what on our land. And those sources of information have also given us some acts that they have been doing. Okay? Yes, Islam. Empress Shava, thank you. And we're winding down right now, by the way, because we don't want this to go too long. But those sources of information have brought to our attention that with all of this insolvency going on, like we've been saying, the corporations, the ones that are over all of that insolvency, are now looking to move or remove the solvency off of the land. They're looking to move the solvency or insolvency off the land. The debt has to go. Okay? Which is what we did when we did our POW demonstration. We let the dead bury the dead. Dead and debt are the same thing. Those two words are synonymous, and not only are they synonymous, one is a derivative of the other. Dead and debt, same thing. So now we see these ones that were doing all this business as corporations, it seems like they're just running and hiding. That's what it seems like. Because you look in and you see them stepping down and you don't see them in the news flashing themselves anymore like they used to and all of that kind of stuff. It's a lot of hiding. And sometimes you can go in and try and find out who the CEO is of a corporation that you want to lien, and sometimes you can't even find who that is. Why is that? Here's why. Because, number one, because we've been liening them, and they don't like to be liened. Because when we place a lien on them, all of this shell corporation business and all of that comes to a halt for the one doing the liening. And that's why all Moors need to be leaning. Okay? It's been enough Moors leaning and speaking with one voice that it has caused a lot of that stuff to just grind to a halt. But every Moor needs to be doing liens and court actions. And your liens and court actions can be done on paper too, as sovereign affidavits, but it also manifests in what we say and what we do. Yes, ooh, every quarter, that's good. Did you know, see what she put in the chat? She said, glad we put the lien on the public record so you can still find out who the CEO is. Yes. Had we not done that, they would be able to run and hide and we wouldn't know who to lien. Yes, you can lien someone who was the CEO 10 years ago. You sure can lien him because he was unlawful then too. Ooh, Justice Yezreel, that's good. Liens neutralize corporate persona. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. They stop the dead. They stop the subjects from acting in a dead status. Period. That's why we do them. So now, let me show you real quickly why they're running also. Because, see, the debt is being collected up. It's being bundled and burned is what the biblioheliotext says about it. Okay? So remember, when you look at the biblioheliotext, I probably said don't throw it away. Don't throw it away because it's trust law that they've been using and mistranslating. So that debt is being bundled and burned. Now, again, we're not talking about those who have a heartbeat beating in their chest. Why are we not talking about them? Because they've been under a spell too that only we could remove. So we're not looking at hurting any living being. Why would we create them and then hurt them? That's not the point. The point is remove that shell corporation off of them and leave standing before you your creation, a living, breathing subject. So now, let me show you really quickly. I want to show you, let's see, some of the actions that have been being taken to collect up some of the debt. Just real quick. This right here, Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, is a 2010 United States federal law requiring all non-US. That means there's something to it. That means debtors. And when they say non-US, if you're a corporation, there's no such thing as you being non-US. That's how come they can get you. So it doesn't matter if you call yourself a corpse from Ireland or a corpse from England or a corpse from Africa or a corpse from wherever. If it's in capital letters in black ink or black ink, period, the United States Corporation Company can come get you. It says it right here. It's a 2010 United States federal law requiring all non-U.S. foreign financial institutions, or FFIs, to search their records for customers with indicia, which means indications of a connection to the U.S., including indications in records of birth certificates. They're looking for people who are using those, or prior res identity in the U.S. or the like, and to report the assets and identity of such persons to the U.S. Department of the Treasury. So just so that you're aware, they're looking for you. If you're pretending to be a fake fraudulent corporation. And here's the thing about this piece right here. This Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act applies to all, no matter where you are on the in the quote-unquote world. Okay, we're not talking about the earth. We're talking about the world. In the corporate world, they will find you. This is an agreement between all of them that they are to give up the record of customers with any indication of a connection to the U.S. That's why we say terminate the corporate contracts, because they're looking for anybody who has them. And they're going to tiptoe their way in to get at you, but they are going to do it, whether it be through us pulling someone over who's using those things. It's called the long arm of the law type of thing. Yes. Termination of corporate contracts. And listen, they're looking here too in anyone claiming to be a corp. They're looking for those ones with this part right here. And not only that, a couple of other things that I wanted to point out about this very thing. Because I looked through here and found a couple of terms and terminologies and things, and I'm thinking, wow, this is, they're getting really serious, even with the ones, quote unquote, that's living in the United States corporation company. And look, they're even talking about common reporting standards. And it says the FATCA has also been criticized for its impact. That means that it's getting at Americans living overseas. Now, Americans, this is not us right here, because it's got a capital A. And implicated in record-breaking number of U.S. citizenship renunciations. So please do not let them try and pretend like they want to keep that United States corporation company status. They are running from that status like there's no tomorrow. But yet they want to keep signing you up. That's why we don't go to their court. We do court on them first. You don't just not show up. What you do is you do a proactive court action on them and then notify them. Okay? So, listen, even the hybrids are running from that status. No, they're not opening bank accounts and stuff in black ink and capital letters. So can we please stop doing that? More, stop doing that. Just out of, and you can't tell sovereigns what to do. So I guess I'm just speaking out of concern. Please don't do that. And that I'm requesting. Please just don't do it. It's not worth it. Stop contracting with them. Just out of concern. And that's a request. It's not a command. Because we can't command sovereign.
Islam.
So Islam, nobility.
Yes. There's another terminology is what you were actually indirectly saying, and it's called divorce. And then with divorce, it's called, the another word is DEFORCIANT, and that's one who divorced the rightful owner.
Wow. Yes. Yes. Thank you for that, Nobility. I got booted off temporarily by my phone. When we start getting into this kind of stuff, it's, you know, the electronics sometimes will do some things. Islam. Yes, absolutely correct. I like what you said there, because there's another term also that the foreign corporate courts have been using. They started using this term a couple of years back because they saw what was coming. It's called force majeure. Force majeure. So, and some call it force majeure, and then there's a derivative called force de jure. And force de jure has a lot to do with the Moors, okay, and the liens and all of that. But again, we don't do anything by gunpoint. Our pen is mightier than the sword. Can you hear me now, Nobility?
Yes.
Okay. So I want to also say here, I wanted to point out the common reporting standard. Okay. This right here, the common reporting standard, is an information standard for the automatic exchange of information. Automatic exchange of information regarding financial accounts on a global level between tax authorities, which the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development developed in 2014. They didn't develop it in 2014 because you can't do anything global like that in just this has been in place since time immemorial, really. They just accessed it in 2014 because they knew what was happening. And all it is again, on a global level, there is no one, because see, when we do our liens, we're accessing information. We're accessing global information. When we go to Dun and Bradstreet and we look and see who's there, and we lien them from there, you can even see all over in China and, you know, Australia, Sweden, Japan, Vietnam, just all these other places. But these corporate derivatives of the ones that started at Dun and Bradstreet here. And again, this is the automatic exchange of information. Automatic means any contract, and this is what we've been saying about those contracts. Yes, Justice Frank, thank you for that, force majeure. Any contract that is signed, I don't care if you go down the street and you sign a little payday loan, let's just say. You sign for a little payday loan and in black ink, and, you know, they hand you the black pen because they have the black pens attached to the counter. You know, we've been in them places when we were in our sleep. They have them pens attached to the counter, and they hand you that black pen, and guess what? The more sign the black ink, then guess what? The Federal Reserve knows that, yep, one of the Moors came in and they agreed to be surety. So guess what? On your way home from there, the policy enforcers pull you over and throw you in jail for a busted tail light. Why? Because you got contracts, and they're like, we got some surety. We got some surety here. That's force. But it's not really force. It's we consented to be surety. We consented to be a shell corporation. And each shell corporation, and this is the thing about that, is when even if we had signed one contract, they could create 150,000 derivatives from that one contract. That's why we do a termination of corporate contracts. We're terminating the shell corporation. No. Oh, Justice Yesharel, thank you for saying that. No, they're not being helpful when they present you with the black pen. They're not trying to help you. They're not, oh, here's the pen. You need a pen? Here you go. No. They're trying to get over. and get a sandwich from you. And they don't care whether you end up in jail for a contract that you think is unrelated to you being there. But the contracts and the black ink is jurisdiction. Yes, it is. We've proven that. Now they're saying it's jurisdiction. But we had to say it first before they would actually put all of that out where everybody can see it. Now, they've had it written down, and some people knew it, but they won't bring all of that information home and apply it to going down the street and signing for a payday loan or something like that, or a pawn shop or something like that. They will not tie those things together and make it that plain for us. That's our job. And that's why we're saying what we're saying. Is that little thing, anytime you use that black pen, yes, Justice Frank, be careful of them free benefits, them things they're calling free benefits. Don't do it. I remember they would, like if they're giving away some free, quote unquote, free lunches in the neighborhood, they had people signing up for that. And they would say, no, just sign here and we'll give you this big free box of food. They're registering you and creating shell corporations. It is not free. And then, again, there is, remember more, automatic informing going on. So as soon as they take that back to their little corporation, the corporation put it in the system, and then they start tax reporting. And when they start tax reporting to get them a 501c3 benefit for giving away free food in the neighborhood, then they got a whole bunch of moorishe contracts in there, and they're like, yep, we got some sandwiches. Let's start bringing people in. They've agreed to be surety. Let's go. Go get them, policy enforcers. So-and-so lives over here at this address. Since you agreeing to be surety, you got to have an address. Okay, and we know we don't have addresses. We have mailing locations. So then once you've agreed to be that, then they say, okay, she live over here. She should be leaving out. Let's look on the GPS satellite and look at her domicile and see what time she's leaving, so we'll know when to tell you to head on down to pick her up. Pull her over. We don't care why you pull her over. Find something wrong. If ain't nothing wrong, find it. Find something wrong and bring her in. We got some sandwiches. Not free, and that's all because of your little free. You thought you was getting a big box of GMO, genetically modified food. And that is why we're doing what we're doing with our own money and getting the companies in position so that we can produce our own everything. Our own food, our own clothing, our own materials, our own conveyances. We got to produce all our own stuff. And guess what? The infrastructure is already here. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just needed to stand up and say, we're doing this. The company, we've shown you where the businesses and things are already there. They're already setting up. Already set up. Our ancestors had them in place already. We just needed to get our own money. And we have that now. So let's keep moving in the direction we're moving. Keep the contracts terminated. And then move about freely doing what you need to do by affidavit. You never have to sign another contract when you speak by affidavit and be proactive. Proactively doing all that you need to do. So with that being said, we won't go any, we won't take it any further because we're already at 2.5 hours. But we could go on because there's some other things I wanted to show you too about the common reporting standards. It's automatic and it's enforced everywhere for corpses and corporations because there's some other parts of that bring it all the way down to where we are. And when I say down to where we are, I mean on the level of us being able to, something as simple as a black ink signature for a burger. Take your red pen with you everywhere you go. Take your red pen, and if you need to take your your red gel stamp pad so you can put your right red thumbprint, do that too. But for sure, take a red pen with you everywhere you go. And know to do it in red and all lowercase letters. Yes, Justice Frank, see, you know, yes, Islam. Justice Frank said he's pretending to be them corpses talking about, I got a free phone for you, I got a free tablet, I got a free bus pass, all you got to do is sign here. Yes, Justice Frank, that is what they do. That's what they do, and it's like, you know what? No. And see, we're going to have to say no to things like that. And we know that some people need to get things done, and we know that we're in transition. We know that. But when we know better, we have got to do better. We got to do better. That's contracting. Yes, it is. Islam. With that being said, is there any other wisdom, questions, comments from the Moors? Remember our fast. Islam nobility. Yes.
There is another phrase when people didn't understand when they talk about Doomsday's book. It's misphrasing to the point that the Doomsday is spelled different from the actual Doomsday book, and this Doomsday book is spelled D-O-M-E-S day book. And this is a record of surveys of English lands and land holdings made by the order of William the Conqueror about 1086 AD. So the basic misconception was the other doomsday is the judgment. This doomsday or Domesday is dealing with the survey. So that's a little...
And you know what? That's Domesday. Dome means the mind, the brain, the dome, the head. Domesday, the thinker. Yes. That's good. I'm going to have to look that up because William the Conqueror is the one that the hybrids hang their hat on him, saying that he is their quote-unquote father. He's the one who, you know, allowed them to do whatever they're doing and all of that. That's what the hybrids have been saying about William the Conqueror. Yes, Islam. Thank you so much for that, nobility. There was someone else who was going to say something, one of the empresses, I believe.
Islam, Empress Leal. I just had a quick question. I did the demonstration on the banks, and I sent out the lien, the UCC one, and I got a encrypted email a few days ago. Now, I did the court action, I'm going to say maybe over a week ago, but when I got that encrypted email, I didn't open it, but it's just wondering what would they send me or potentially be sending me.
Something probably that wants to regain jurisdiction again because you stepped out from under their jurisdiction.
Islam.
And they will always attempt to try and get you back under there. And I'll say this, generally they will try if they saw something in there that indicates that they might have a chance. Because sometimes they'll look and it might be one word, and Empress Portia is saying, please don't open it. You have to sign to open it. Yeah, I wouldn't open it because what do they have to say? If anything, they'll be trying to ask questions. Well, if they're asking questions, that means the one who's asking is acting as the king. That means they're trying to gain jurisdiction over you. So there's no need to talk to them.
Well, I will just delete it.
You've already given your command.
Yes,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Empress.
No, I just said I was going to delete it now. I just wanted to kind of run it by the nation just to see if anyone else had received anything like that. But I'm going to back on out of it and get it off of my email.
Yeah. Yeah, I would do that because you've already spoken.
I didn't sign for anything, so I'm very glad about that.
Yeah, Islam. You've already given your commands in writing. They have it in writing. So, and when we give commands, they're to do what we said, not come back and ask a bunch of questions. Do exactly as commanded. And we give competence thorough command, because we know how to do that, you know. Islam.
Islam.
Beautiful
Islam.
demonstration, Empress. Beautiful.
Islam. I yield.
Yes, Islam. With that being said, we will go ahead and bring the call to a close here, and we'll meet again tomorrow night at 7, and we'll show some more in the law and in the studies that we've been doing about why we're doing what we're doing as a nation, and you know, the information that's coming out now is magnificent. So let's keep it going. And if you all come across any information, you have my number. Please text me a link to it or something so I can look at it, and then we'll talk some more. Islam. Peace and grand rising to the sovereign, original, indigenous, natural, divine era. Islam.
Peace and grand rising there.
Peace and grand rising there.
Thursday in the making.
Grand rising.
Islam.
Islam.
Long live the empire.
Yes, Islam.